Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, I'm Matt Hansen.
I'm Shawn Eastridge.
And I'm Philip Gilfus.
And welcome to Filibuster.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
This is extremely exciting. This is the first filibuster I've ever done. And I'm so honored to be sitting in not the same room as you two gentlemen, but I'm just very happy to be here.
I know, this is my first movie filibuster. So I'm very, I actually saw a movie on opening weekend when everyone else on the Nerd Party did, so I feel like I'm cool now.
You're one of the cool kids. Tristan, your card has been turned in. Philip, we'll give it to Philip.
Haha, that's what you get for not having a baby.
But I'm actually excited because, I mean, I've met Philip briefly at the Star Trek Las Vegas, but I've never podcasted with him. And Shawn, I've never met you before, but I'm a long-time listener, long-time fan.
Likewise. So this is, I'm really happy to do this with you guys. And I'm excited. I'm always excited to talk about Spider-Man.
So it's like cool, like we all started out originally, but we've through the rough and tumble experiences have been brought together to fight a common foe of reviewing Spider-Man. So I think that's cool. Good things. I mean, I'm trying to think of some sort of team that would be an analogy to that. Nothing's quickly coming to mind.
I mean, I think we could just say we are the DC trio. We're Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Because
that's crossing the streams. We could just say that we're the Avengers or something.
Okay, let's do that. Maybe that's a little bit more appropriate.
Right.
But, we're here to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. Just came out this weekend, and as of right now, just checking online, expected to gross $117 million at the box office here.
And it just had, I think, $117 million, which is above what they were saying, like 90 to 100 million. And I think it had like around another 200 million worldwide. So it's like huge debut.
It's at 250 million plus worldwide, and that's without France, Germany, China, Spain.
So this is going to be like nuts. And it's the second biggest opening for Sony since Spider-Man 3.
And dare I say, not to spoil my review or anything, but it's slightly better than Spider-Man 3.
Just a tad bit. Though there's no dance, there's not as much dancing as I would have liked. There is a homecoming in Spider-Man Homecoming, but not the appropriate amount of emo Peter Parker dancing around and playing jazz piano. I needed a little bit more of that.
The emo is coming from Zendaya, this movie.
That's right.
But let's get into it. So I thought to start off, and Shawn is going to be the point man for most of this discussion, but just to start off, what were our thoughts going into the movie and maybe the background with the character? For me personally, I'd always liked Spider-Man, but I'm not a comic book reader, so it's not like I know the little intricacies of the character the way I do on something like Star Trek. But I had liked the first two Raimis, and I was willing to give the Amazings a chance, and I actually didn't mind the first Amazing Spider-Man, but then it went off the rails with the second one. So
putting it lightly. And so I was never really dying to see a new Spider-Man until I saw Civil War. I think that for a lot of the general going public, I'm willing to bet that that's the appearance that turned around a lot of opinions, because he's maybe in 15 minutes of Civil War, but I couldn't get enough of Tom Holland. There was something about his energy and his interacting with the greater Marvel universe that I'm a huge fan of. That really got me excited for the first time in a long time, to see a new iteration of Spider-Man. So, I knew sentiment going in for this was kind of mixed because it's the third iteration in 15 years, but I was excited mostly because of the Civil War appearance. Yeah, I'll second that. I am a huge fan of the character. Like, if I were to name my favorite superheroes, there's Superman, who I just love because I grew up with Superman. I really love that character. But Spider-Man was different because while Superman is kind of
the perfect embodiment of like he's a superhero, he's indestructible, he always does the right thing.
Unless he's directed by Zack Snyder.
Unless he's directed by Zack Snyder, in which case he is a selfish maniac who murders people. But I, as a high schooler, I grew up watching the 90s Spider-Man animated cartoon as a kid.
Me too.
And I liked it. I thought Spider-Man was a fun character, but I never really liked Peter Parker because in that show he's like kind of a beefy guy. He's built like a football player, which is just how comic characters were drawn in the 90s. They're all like huge and buff. So I always thought Peter Parker was like this kind of just obnoxious sort of like, I can't get a date with anybody. And I was like, I don't like this. He's like, we're a college level. I couldn't relate to it as a kid. I was like, this is stupid.
Oh, you get dates all the time.
Yeah,
Wow.
it felt like he dated every day. He's like, Felicia, I can't go on a date with you. And I was like, this guy's stupid. And I'm like 10 years old, so I'm totally not into that.
Just, however can he choose between Mary Jane, Felicia, and Gwen?
Exactly. That's what the whole show was. So it was like this. I like the Spider-Man, the fun of the character with him quipping and stuff, but Peter Parker I wasn't that into. And then around the time they started releasing trailers for Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, and the preview is like, I don't know if you remember it, but it's kind of like Tobey Maguire has a narration where it kind of carries the preview through where he's like, my life wasn't always this easy. I used to have it a lot, or it wasn't always this difficult. It was a lot easier. And it showed him as kind of this nerdy kid. And by this point I was in high school. I was like 14, 15 years old. And I was like, wait a second. I thought Peter Parker was like kind of like a beefcake, like a hot guy who had to fight off women with a stick. And I'd never heard of this. So I was fascinated by the previews, and I was really excited to see a live-action version of Spider-Man, even though I wasn't the hugest fan. But then I went back and actually started reading the original comics, starting with Amazing Fantasy number 15. I got those, the Essential series, which is it's not happening anymore, but basically they would reprint black and white issues of like from the very beginning of their comic book characters. And so I started
Captain America ones.
Yeah, I mean it was great, and it was a cheap way to like read those old comics. And I realized like as a 15-year-old kid, couldn't get a date, like girls wouldn't look I know it's hard to believe, but girls just wouldn't look at me. I know I exude manliness and just extreme confidence all the time.
You grew into such a stud, so I can't
I know
believe it.
Exactly.
Well, at the time I would have said, champ, your body may be going through a lot of changes.
It's okay. I know. I went through the exact same thing at your age. No, not exactly. But I reading the comics, I was like, oh my god, like he's just a kid. He's a high school kid, and I love this. And I got really obsessed with it to the point where when Spider-Man the first movie came out, I got to school late. And I walked into my classroom, and they'd already started class, and everyone in the room turned and looked at me and started singing the Spider-Man theme song because I was so obsessed with the movie. And I hadn't even seen it at that point. But I really, really love the character. I've read a lot. I've read at least the first 100 or so issues of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and John Romita. I've read Ultimate Spider-Man, Brian Michael Bendis' run. And then I love it. And I really, really loved the first two Raimi movies. And I, not a huge fan of 3, as much as it's going to sound like I am because I'm going to keep bringing up Dancing Peter Parker. I don't really like it. I'm with you, Matt. I liked Amazing I liked Amazing Spider-Man when I first saw it. In retrospect, I like it less and less because every time I think about watching it, I'm like, why? I'd rather just watch the first Raimi movie.
It seems like a moot point now, but back when it came out, I thought, okay, this has potential. This could go somewhere. Unfortunately, it went right to the gutter, but it had the potential to go somewhere.
Right, and Amazing Spider-Man 2, the less said about that, the better. I will say that was I got to see that with our fellow Nerd Party member John Mills, and that was one of the most delightful movie-going experiences, not because of the movie itself, but because of my experience watching it, our reaction. It was hysterical. But I was all up for a new iteration of Spider-Man. I was excited when they were like, we're not going to do an origin story again. I was excited when they announced he's going to be in high school because I really like coming of age stories and I like high school movies, so I was like, that's a fun angle. And the character, a lot of his best stories are him in high school, so I was really excited by that. And then, like you, Matt, I was thrilled with seeing him in Civil War and how he turned out, because I think as much as I love Tobey Maguire, I think Tobey Maguire is a better Peter Parker than a Spider-Man. Then with Andrew Garfield, you flip the coin, and Andrew Garfield's a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker. But with Tom Holland, you have the best of both worlds, and you got a little snippet of that in Civil War. But Philip, I've talked ad nauseum about Spider-Man.
No.
So let's hear it as far as where you're coming from with the franchise.
Sure. I mean, because I've always been a Marvelite. I have made mine Marvel several times. So I grew up reading Captain America was my primary title, but just being in the verse, if you will, enough said. I would come across Spider-Man, and I had my good friend is a big Batman Spider-Man person. Like those are his two big ones, and so I'd always get some sort of side Spider-Man for issues from him, and he would talk to me about some of the weird storylines and good storylines and alien Spider-Man and clones and all those weird things. But anyway, so I had some bit of it, and then like most everyone else, I saw all the Tobey Maguire, Raimi movies. Third of, I don't hate it as much as everyone else does, but obviously, it's not as great. But I came to it with The Amazing. I didn't see any of them because I was tired of the franchise. I mean, I just saw 3 Spider-Mans. I don't need that character again. I mean, like, it's a little soon for me. And so I never even saw The Amazing, 1 or 2. So I just skipped the entire Garfield. No offense to him, because I'm actually looking forward to seeing him in Angels in America on the big screen here soon. But I sort of skipped him, that series. And so coming to this, like you all said, Civil War, I think bringing that character young again, because, even Toby in that first movie. And look, Tom Holland is not 14 years old in real life. I know, but,
but he looks it.
He does.
Exactly.
He looks more like a high schooler than Toby pulled off, like, I believed he was an awkward kid, but Tom Holland is convincingly a high school student.
Yeah, I bought Tobey Maguire more as the college student once they moved him in 2.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think, like you all said, Civil War, he was young, he was new, he was tiny, he was underoos, he was all that and more. And so I think, he was almost like, between him and Ant-Man, whatever anyone's opinion of which I liked it, but any of your opinion of the actual movie Ant-Man, but Ant-Man and Spider-Man sort of had those sort of stole that show in that battle there between the two of them. And so, since we hadn't seen Spider-Man before, that was very intriguing to have such a big character, Spider-Man in the Marvel mythos, to just be like this slips in for this new person you've never seen before. It's sort of kind of like Flash. I'm not a DC person, but kind of like with Flash in Justice League. We have this guy on TV, but they're just going to like introduce him, I guess, in the Justice
a whole
League.
new iteration of it.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big thing that has this big character, all new.
It was interesting to see Spider-Man because we've had like almost a decade of these movies, and to have Spider-Man introduced, like you're saying, so late in the game when he is arguably Marvel's most popular character, to have him just kind of be like, oh, he's the supporting character to now this new roster that we've been following. It did feel kind of weird, not in a bad way, but it definitely. There was a moment where I was like, it's so strange to me that Spider-Man is like supporting the main cast in this movie.
Right, and of course you get the whole, and I mean, I won't talk about when we get to the movie beforehand, but the sort of, Avengers-esque Marvel view. I mean, outside of Doctor Strange, I suppose. But, Spider-Man's tangential Avenger status in the Marvel comics. He is, he isn't. And then, of course, the whole Sony and who owns Spider-Man, that whole debacle coming into this. But as far as I came to the movie, Civil War intrigued me, and I was like, I'm not dying to see Spider-Man opening weekend, but you know what? I'm a Marvel Universe as a Marvel comic reader in the past, and then also in the current universe. I've kind of been hitting all the opening weekends with most Marvel movies. Not all of them, but most of them. And I was like, you know what? I'm really intrigued what they're going to do with this young man. And then, of course, I was already ready to go. But when I saw Tom Holland on the lip-syncing competition...
Oh, when he was Rihanna?
Oh, my God! I watched
That's
this thing
amazing.
20 times, and he kills me every time with him.
It's so brilliant.
He's this, with my wife, who's lived in England for 11 years, Tom Holland, of course, being British, and him being Billy Elliot on the West End stage. I think we were both sort of intrigued about what this new Spider-Man would bring. And like you said, the fact that it wasn't going to be an origin story was like, yay, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So I was definitely looking forward to how this all was going to do. Yeah.
Doesn't even get a mention in the movie.
I know.
There's an illusion, all Ant-Man has been through or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I will definitely want to talk about that during the review. But yeah, I loved what was so funny is just seeing the videos because I joke about it, but I always talk about how when people get upset about casting, like, oh, who's this Tom Holland? Why does he look so young? I'm like, look, I'm the biggest Spider-Man fan in my general vicinity, and if I'm okay with it, everyone else should be okay with it. Stop complaining. Well, but I remember Tom Holland like doing flips in his Instagram videos and things like during the audition process where he was kind of trying to sell himself, and I was like, sure, this kid can do it. He's already doing flips. Why not?
No, but, like, I mean, I don't even know the character that well. I just know him from the media that I've seen. But, I mean, my thought of it was, like, well, if he's supposed to be a high school kid, isn't him looking like a kid a good thing?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I didn't understand when people were like, why is he so young? I was like, I mean, he is a not the majority, but for the first year or two of the Stan Lee original run, he was in high school. Like a good chunk of his career takes place in that. It's an important part of his character. So that never really bothered me, him being so young. I was really happy when he got the part because he kind of his exuberance kind of struck me, his kind of youthful energy, which is something, as much as I love Tobey Maguire in those movies, he never really had that sort of extreme exuberance or enthusiasm. And Andrew Garfield was just a little too much of a punk. Like, I love the actor, not him personally, but his portrayal was a little too much of a, like, yeah, I'm a really cool New Yorker. And it's like, that's not Peter Parker.
No, but he got the exuberance when he put on the suit.
Exactly.
When he put on the suit, that was the character.
And I have to say, also from an actor standpoint, not without going into all of it, but Michael Keaton, coming from Birdman, which is my favorite movie ever, and I mean, Michael Keaton can do no wrong at this point. And so the fact that he's playing a villain, which is funnily enough at Birdman, considering his Birdman past, he just can't take the wings off.
That's the thing is, like, if you cast him in a superhero movie, he must be playing a character that has wings or traditionally
I just assumed and want to believe and will not hear anything to the contrary that this is a sequel to Birdman. Like, he becomes the Birdman and flies out the window, even though his family is completely different in this movie.
I would totally date his daughter in Birdman as well, so I can see the draw
exactly. There. Somehow, now the Gwen Stacy, her being Gwen Stacy, ruins it a little bit as far as the connected universe goes.
Oh, wow.
I'm still going to pretend it's a sequel. That Spider-Man Homecoming is a sequel to Birdman.
Yes, but that's... Again, I'm not saying, but I don't know. He's a pretty high caliber actor. I mean, not even all of his past stuff, though counting that too. But I mean, he's someone who's not just going to be your cartoon villain that you're going to bring in. I mean, you could, I suppose, but that's kind of intrigued me that they're going to have someone that. And I'm not 100% familiar with Vulture in the comic series, so the not knowing helped. That it wasn't Venom, it wasn't Hobgoblin or Green Goblin, the ones you kind of know a little bit more about, or Lizard even.
Well, Vulture in the comic, it's one of those you have a lot to. You can get away with some creative liberties there because in the comics he's like an old man in a vulture suit, like a bird suit, and it's like okay, you can play with that. I'll give you some leeway. You can't ruin this character. He's already pretty ruined in his original iteration.
Let's fire up the internet comments of like, no, you ruined the Vulture.
I know you don't understand. He's an old man because it's like, what are you talking? But yeah, so even knowing the character in the comics doesn't take away from this.
Well, guys, we're getting into the movie itself, so before we do that, why don't we talk about the theater experiences that we all had? I've already seen this. Of course, I'm the Marvel junkie. I just, like, whenever a Marvel movie comes out, I have to see it multiple times on opening weekend. Unless it was Guardians 2, in which case it was, like, right around the time of finals. So I only got to see it the once. So I've seen this 3 times already. I went Thursday night, 7 p.m. screening, packed theater, lots of enthusiasm. It was that I love seeing. Comic book movies are the one kind of movie I actually do love seeing with a crowd, just because if it's an enthusiastic crowd, a crowd that loves the universe, then it's a good experience. Nothing.
Oh yeah.
Nothing has made a more memorable theater experience than seeing the first Avengers at midnight.
I was going to say the same thing. I didn't see it at midnight, but I saw it on the Sunday of opening weekend, and the energy in the theater and just the movie itself, I still absolutely adore. It was it was wonderful. I completely agree. Seeing these big movies when they're good is so much fun.
So that was a good crowd. Friday night audience, same thing, packed theater. The movie really played to them, and then even last night too. At 10, I went to a 10:45 screening, and it was still pretty full, and the audience was still into it. So I can safely say across 3 viewings that this movie is selling to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I saw it Thursday night, and it, definitely had that enthusiasm. People were really into it. It was clearly the nerd crowd because people were responding to certain cameos. I won't talk about them now. When we get into more spoiler stuff, we can talk about that. But certain cameos, certain name drops got very strong reactions. My second viewing was Saturday night, and it was definitely more of a general audience, but they reacted to everything. Some of the big reveals got some very fun reactions. Knowing what was going on going into it was a lot of fun because you get to kind of react to the people's reactions instead of having your own reaction to the movie. You can kind of now see, oh my gosh, everyone loves this so much. But yeah, both reactions were very positive. People loved it. People stayed till the end credits, and they loved the post-credit scenes as well. So, yeah, I had a very good viewing both times, and it seems like people are really enjoying it.
I mean, we won't spoil it now, but this might be one of my favorite.
Oh, totally.
Post credits.
Yeah, I would put this up there. My favorite might be the shawarma of the Avengers, but this might be a close second.
Right. Yeah, I think because my wife will never go to the movie theater unless we go to the movie tavern because she wants beer with her movies, and I can respect that. So we went to the movie tavern, but I'm sure everyone has the different kind of movies where you live, the ones that serve the food and the beer, and the waitresses and waiters come to you. But anyway, so we had our libations and such. We went to the 410 on Saturday. I know, I guess that's not technically opening for the super diehards, but we're married and old, so what do you want from us? But so it was a little bit more family crowd. I mean, by that I mean kids, which was a little, which is fine, I guess. But I mean, in other words, there were some trailers that were there were some horror movie trailers. I'm like, I don't know if I'd want my 8-year-old watching this trailer, but anyway, neither here nor there. But it was the same reactions, I think, because it was more like I guess the opposite from you was that it was less nerdy. It was a little more general audience, and so that you sort of got, but it's still sort of authentic reactions, especially some of the surprises, like you said, the twist. Some of the twists near the end, which we'll talk about, was I think that lasted like a good 40 seconds. We're like, oh my, what?
Yeah,
that's who that is. Okay, but anyways, so that was a hardcore twist. So, it got me too. But anyway, I won't get into it right now. But yeah, I think it was a good crowd, and everyone seemed happy to be there. So the last time I went to that theater, I think it was for Wonder Woman, which I don't think it was. The Spider-Man one wasn't packed, because it's a small theater for the movie tavern because they don't have that many seats because it's all luxury and everything. But it was mostly packed compared to Wonder Woman because I was the early Wonder Woman watching that. That sort of built a little faster, or slower for Wonder Woman. But I think everyone's here to see Spider-Man and they're happy to be here. Yeah,
you go ahead, Sean. You're the point guy for this.
I was gonna say, so taking it from there, going to the movie, we're excited. We all have. It sounds like we're all very not varying levels of excitement, but it sounds like we were all generally positive going into the movie. We were excited to see where it was going. So how did the movie fare as far as final reactions coming out? And let's get non-spoiler reactions, and then after we get all of our non-spoilers, we'll go straight into in-depth discussion. But Matt, go ahead as far as your reaction and general rating for the movie.
Yeah, so when I came out of it on Thursday night, I really loved it. It was such a different take on the Spider-Man character that I hadn't really seen before. I loved all the actors and their parts. It was just a movie that, against all odds, this third iteration of Spider-Man is probably my favorite. I had watched. I did whenever a big movie like this comes out, I do a rewatch of the films leading up to it, and I watched all the other Spider-Man films again. All 5 of them. And as much as I like those first 2 Raimi ones, they are starting to show their age a bit. And I'm not saying that this won't either, but this feels like the most modern, the most refreshing take on the character. I liked the fact that, and we'll get into it, there's less of a focus on the soap opera-y elements of
Yes.
the Raimis and the Amazings, but they replaced that with more identifiable human drama and coming of age, and I like that a lot better.
Now, Matt, do you think it helps it extra or neutral that this is part of the official Marvel Cinematic Universe now, that it has sort of that supporting story, that supporting universe as well, instead of the standalones, if you will, of the earlier iterations? Or do you think it's just neutral, it just happens to still be good?
I mean, I would be lying if I said it didn't help it, but that's because I'm such a big Marvel Cinematic Universe fan that bringing this character into the universe is a great thing. And I'll be honest, when they first announced the deal with Sony, I was like, well, this sounds like it's good, but I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing so well, they really don't need Spider-Man. But once I saw him in Civil War, and saw him interacting with the characters that I love, I was like, oh, I need more of him immediately. So the fact that, I think for me it helps that it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It gets me excited for the character and what the kind of interactions he will have in the future.
Phil, what about you? So what do you think about Spider-Man Homecoming?
Sure. I'm just trying to, just saying it's good, I know doesn't really help anyone. I'm trying to sort of put it on a scale because, it's obviously not I know this is an overused word, but I'll say it anyway. It's not the epicness of an Avengers or even a Civil War, which is basically an Avengers movie. Just called Captain America. And so you can't really rate it. I mean, you can. But for me, you can't really rate it as sort of the group swim or all swim movie, because this is a standalone character. It's to me, it's in between most of the standalone movies and Guardians. I don't mean that quality-wise. I mean in tone. Because Guardians is the ha-ha, we're going to have fun. I mean, it's still serious. There's still feeling. There's still depth. I'm not trying to take it away from that. But this is we're going to have fun with this Marvel Universe movie is Guardians. Even Ant-Man to a certain extent as well. But then you have sort of your Thors and everything else and Captain Americas and all that, which is a little more Iron Man's, a little more serious. And I think Spider-Man's between those two. Because it's not uber serious. I mean, not any Marvel movie, cinematic universe is uber serious. But it's also not completely out the door, over the top like Guardians. But I think it's in between those two. I think it's fun. It's because I think it's more fun than some of the standalones. Because that's the character. He's a kid, so he's going to be more. I mean, if he's super serious, it'd kind of be off. Really, it'd be darker and gothic-y and blah blah. And that to me is not. That's not my favorite. I'm not a fan of all that stuff. But anyway, so I think it's in between those two. And so I mean, on the whole, it's good. I think this is non-spoiler. Like you said, you're not going to get your typical teenage. This isn't going to be a very special CW episode of Spider-Man, and. The effects are not overwhelming as they can be in some movies, even outside of Marvel. I mean, this is not spoiler to say you're going to have your final CGI fight because every movie that's superhero has to do that. No one's imagined how to do it without CGI final fight movie part yet. But anyway, but it's not terribly so, as I've seen some others do. And I think, to me, this is one of the few movies that you have a good standalone person. By that, I mean there's usually a group. You have... Thor will have, his love interest, and then have the other humans, or will have his group of happy warriors, or even Captain America will have Falcon or Bug. There's always someone else. And not that this Spider-Man doesn't have his sidekick, but it's really him. This is him. This is a Spider-Man movie 100%. So he has a lot to carry Tom Holland on his shoulders, and I think he does it great. He does it well. And you get a character, and this isn't spoilery, a villain who I think is probably... And you can argue with me, and you probably will, because I haven't thought of it that much, but I believe the most well-thought-out villain I've seen in Marvel.
I would say he's second
outside
only
of
to
Loki, but that's not fair, because Loki's been in a million movies. So, but yes, that's what I was thinking, Matt. That was the only one I could think of, like Loki. But
for a one-off, because even Loki in the first Thor is okay. It's not really till the Avengers where you kind of get full-blown Loki, and it's like, oh, he's actually really awesome. At least personally, that's how I felt about that character. So for Michael Keaton's Vulture to have a one-off that works and works well without necessarily knowing whether or not there is going to be any if Michael Keaton would ever come back for another one, that's it's pretty cool.
So far, I would have to say, aside from Loki, who's a god, the most successful Marvel Cinematic Universe villains for me have been the ones who are kind of like the the not uber powerful people, the little people that are doing things behind the scenes, like Michael Keaton in this movie, or I would even say that I really liked Daniel Bruhl in Civil War as Zemo, just because of his motivation, and he felt like a more human villain.
It was a very emotional. Yeah, it was an emotional arc, and his villain had a strong emotional connection to the characters, even though they never actually face off with him. His emotional journey through the movie is it feels fulfilling, and you get a sense of like he accomplished what he set out to accomplish, and that's the difference, because a lot of the villains are mostly just there to be like, I will destroy the world, and the heroes have to kind of step up and save the day. So what I found as well is that the characters that are a little bit more low key, a little bit more like they have their own reasons for doing what they do, and then here comes these jerks to ruin their day and basically keep them or prevent them from accomplishing their goals.
It's a lot better when the goal isn't I'm going to destroy the world. It's more better. It's more interesting when the goal is I'm going to destroy you personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I will say, I'll explain this more when we go spoilerly, but I will say this, and I know this this may be a turnoff to someone, but I'll explain it when we go down. Is that to me he's the first Trump era villain, and I don't mean that politically. I just mean in the time period we live in. That to me he's a very Trump era villain, and I'll explain that why in spoilers. But I think that's very modern. It's very like Spider-Man is a 21st century movie. It is a 2017, and hopefully it's not a bad thing. It's not going to date it forever and ever. But I think the concepts are universal, might be the wrong word, but are very common throughout life. And so I think that it was very interesting of its time now, and I think it should age well.
Hashtag make Spider-Man great again.
Exactly.
I think they did accomplish that at least.
So yeah, let's hear from the Uber fan. How did you feel working out?
So I really enjoyed it both times. My first viewing of anything that I'm really anticipating it tends to be an overwhelming experience, as was the case here. I think The Force Awakens is probably the strongest example of that I've had recently. Is just going into that with insane expectations and walking out of the movie realizing like, oh wait, I don't know what I thought because I was too busy like feeling overwhelmed. Spider-Man to a lesser extent, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so I do have that kind of passion going into it. And hearing about the reviews and what everyone was saying got me even more excited. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd say I loved it. I did love Tom Holland a lot. I think kind of what we're saying, he is both sides of the coin. He's Peter Parker, he's Spider-Man. He gives me what I want from Peter Parker, which is like a nerdy, awkward kid who just wants to do the right thing. And with Spider-Man, he gives me that like youthful enthusiasm and like just joking all the time and being ridiculous and goofy. So he really nails both aspects of the character. And we'll transition into spoilers after this. What I needed from this movie that I didn't personally feel was an emotional journey for Peter, which is the reason I love the Raimi movies so much. I do think they're definitely getting a little dated, but I love the campiness of them. But I also love the sincerity of them, and I love that Spider-Man 1 gives you a full character arc for Peter, as does Spider-Man 2. Even Spider-Man 3, as bad as it is, tries to give a character arc for Peter. And I had elements of that in this movie, but I almost felt like it was so focused on convincing audiences like it's going to be fun. It's not going to be angsty like you're used to, because we've talked about Uncle Ben constantly, and I know you're tired about hearing with great power comes great responsibility. So they clearly wanted to set the pendulum off in a really fun, enthusiastic, and energetic direction. But I really wanted... I never felt like I got a good understanding. Even though we all know who Spider-Man is, this is technically the first of a new iteration of the character. And I really wanted an understanding as to why he wants to do what he does, besides the fact that he's like, I want to be an Avenger. You get a little bit of it in Civil War, but again, because this is a standalone movie, I want that little piece. But overall, I enjoyed it. And now let's go ahead. We can transition into spoilers. So for anyone who has not seen the movie, go ahead and shut off and come back later, and you can enjoy hearing us talk about it. But I'll transition that idea because I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I
sling some spoilers.
I know. There we go. This isn't a huge spoiler, but it does. This bothered me. I don't need this to be. We spent the first 3 Spider-Man movies talking about Uncle Ben, Uncle Ben, Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben, constantly, like responsibility, all that stuff.
We got it. Uncle Ben ghost in like 2 and 3.
Exactly, and then Andrew Garfield, the first one again with Uncle Ben. We have to. Do we really need to see this again? No, we don't need to see it again, and I'm happy that Homecoming is like, let's just hit the ground running. I think that's great, but I thought it was very odd and a little off-putting for me that they never mention Uncle Ben explicitly once. Like, there's no photos of him, and maybe they'll do a cool like reveal later on of a fun actor playing that part, but they don't specifically mention him by name. It's weird that Peter Parker. Uncle Ben is why he's Spider-Man. I love his origin because out of all the superheroes, like Superman's parents, like on Krypton, it blew up and that was outside of his control, but he just does the right thing because he was raised well. Batman had an unfortunate tragedy happen to him. He was not in control of that situation, but it drives him to basically be who he is. Peter Parker, on the other hand, what I love about his origin story and why I think it's the strongest from a character standpoint of all the origin stories I know is that he played arguably a direct role in his uncle's murder, where he had an opportunity to stop a crime and he didn't because he was feeling prideful or he wanted revenge or he was feeling selfish. And as a result of his inaction, that criminal went on to kill his uncle. And his drive comes from that. I will not let this happen. I abused my powers and I used them for selfish gain. I won't do that again. I'm going to make this up. So the problem with Spider-Man Homecoming for me is that is a crucial part of the character. Don't give me, a whole movie where he's trying to like, oh, I need to struggle and get through this. I can deal with the fun, but I really wanted a moment where you just get a sense where he's doing this because he feels like he screwed up and he has to do the right thing. And I know I know Marvel and Sony were just trying to get away from the constant discussions of Uncle Ben, but I really needed an emotional moment. I needed an emotional arc for Spider-Man. I get that from the first 2 Raimi movies, but I didn't really get it from Homecoming. And I wonder what you like. What do you guys think? Like, am I off the mark here, or how do you guys feel about that?
Well, I mean, as you were talking, Sean, I'm thinking, do we even know? Like, should we even be assuming that's what happened for his origin?
I think so, only because of what is said but not really said in Civil War.
Yeah.
For me, it didn't bother me as much because, as weird as this sounds, I don't consider this Spider-Man's first movie, even though technically it is. I consider it a sequel to his appearance in Civil War. Yeah. So, when he's talking with Tony Stark in Civil War, and he says, Tony Stark asks him, what gets you out of that twin bed in the morning? And he says something to the effect of, when you have the ability to do good things, but you don't, and then you let the bad things happen, they happen because of you. Right. That was enough for me to have that sort of like responsibility talk without necessarily going into the angst of Uncle Ben. But I mean, I guess you could say that it should have come into this movie. I like that this movie is more focused on what if this teenager actually did have these powers. Yeah, they wouldn't be a master of them right away.
Mm-hmm. You're right,
I do like the non-origin story.
Yes.
We get the Spider-Man tutorial mode of would you like to learn how to play Spider-Man? Yes, okay, and the lady suit gets him through it and all that. And so I do like because and I'm sure Matt and both of y'all probably will think of examples, but we don't often see bad superheroes. Because he's arguably a bad superhero through about
he a lot of the destruction and things that happen in this movie that cause huge problems for him are because of mistakes he's made.
Right. By bad you mean like incompetent.
Yeah. He's not quite up to par. He can't quite get the job done.
Right. I mean, because to see his sort of the homemade uniform, I think kind of lends where he's coming from and in his where he is, and I do like the it's not even a teenage thing. It's a whole thing like, hey, I have these superpowers. I can do everything. And of course, I think it's ironic that Tony Stark is supposed to be your mentor of, hey, you should make wise, knowledgeable, mature decisions. Like, really? Tony
The
Stark?
alcoholic, womanizing billionaire.
That's who created the villain for most of the movies.
I was going to say,
Right.
well, he's still trying. I mean, this is still post-Civil War, so I guess he's still trying to atone for Ultron.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, that was one thing that, coming into Spider-Man, being a Marvel CU, not a diehard, but someone who enjoys them, I was like, now what are we going to see? Like, the post-Civil War world is going to be the first movie post-Civil War. What's the state of play? And again, I haven't seen Civil War that many times, so I'm a little rusty on where things should be. But I do like the sort of side reference of like Captain America. I know he's a war criminal or something. I don't know, whatever. Watch the video. But as far as like the actual state of play, like, shouldn't remind me what's the state of play? Like, shouldn't Spider-Man be registered? Like, what's like that was the to me like
That's a good point. And they even talk about this the Sokovia
Accords
Act. Yeah, they talk about it in class, like a history class. They're teaching it to kids.
I try to. I was, not that I'm trying to like give excuses for this movie, but I did wonder about that. But at the same time, Spider-Man until this movie was never the I'm going to stop crime in the Middle East superhero. He was the neighborhood kid who just kind of stopped petty thievery. So maybe Tony Stark talked to Thunderbolt Ross or whoever and said, look, this kid's really not doing anything that much. He doesn't need to sign the Accords.
Yeah, he might not even be on the radar at all. Like, I mean, technically in Civil War, he's fighting the big fight at the airport, so he could be on that radar. But it's
at most,
I'm sure...
At most, he's a YouTube star in this film. That's
exactly.
About it.
But he's in New York City, though. That's not under the radar.
Right. Well, he mostly, something else. And again, I like that this kind of sets up that there is room. There's more stories to tell. But he never spends a lot of time in like New York. Like, what I love about
the
Spider-Man
suburbs.
is you see him. Yeah, he's in Queens a lot, which is where he lives. But I love that like we get that sense of vertigo and him swinging around these gigantic buildings and like Manhattan and things like that, which isn't really in this movie that much. But it's also okay because again, he's kind of starting small and you have room to grow. Like if he goes to college, he can spend more time in the city. Yeah, it is. I think he's just such a small fry that they don't think about it. Like it's. And like, I did love. Leave him alone. He's also a kid.
Yeah, I did love the use of the timeline though of Avengers. I mean, you start off the whole movie literally post Avengers 1, and then you go to Civil War with Peter Parker's homemade video,
which is fantastic.
And I know, then you're post Civil War, so like you get the whole Avengerverse, and so it kind of reminds you of where you are, where you've been, where you're going, and it does all help connect, which of course is the whole point of the MCU, I know, but it all does connect it, threads the needle.
It's nice, and I like, so the end of the movie kind of implies that, I was honestly kind of nervous because I'm with you guys, I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I can also recognize that it's getting convoluted and it's getting harder, like, because you need to have a movie or two every year. It's harder for them all to achieve high quality when you're now building a franchise as opposed to telling a single story. It's kind of what I love about the Raimi movies because even though each one teased a sequel, it wasn't like, this has to be a huge franchise. It was like they had the leeway to just tell a single standalone story and leave it at that. Now it's like, oh, but Spider-Man now has to connect to 50 other universes and we have to make sure continuity and da-da-da-da-da. But I was really nervous at the end of the movie when Tony was like, come be an Avenger with us, that he was going to be like, awesome. Because the whole movie has been like him being like, I want to be an Avenger. I want to be an Avenger. And then when he was like, no, I think I'm going to keep things small, I was like, oh, thank God. Because I love, Spider-Man is such a strong character on his own, and he works so much better on his own without somebody helping him, because you like to see him struggle and learn and process these things on his own. And I felt that was not only a good conclusion for his character in this movie, but I also felt it was like the filmmakers kind of saying he's going to stay in his own world and he is obviously going to come back for Infinity War and things like that. Yeah. But I liked that was kind of the filmmakers acknowledging like Spider-Man's going to do his own thing. He doesn't necessarily have to always be in this gigantic universe.
And he might be an Avenger in the future. What I anticipate might happen is that he doesn't want to be an Avenger now, but something's going to happen in Infinity War where I think it's given that Infinity War, some of the guys that have been around since Phase 1 are going to start to be taken out of the equation.
Right.
So, I'm willing to bet that, the Avengers in a few years will be, instead of the lineup we have now, it'll be Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, and
Right.
Black Panther. So he
Scarlet
might be
Witch, Vision.
he might be the face of the new Avengers.
Exactly. So bringing it back down to Homecoming, what did you guys think about? We kind of talked a little bit about the high school angle. I know John Watts and the screenwriters and Kevin Feige constantly reference like John Hughes. They wanted to go for a John Hughes feel, things like that. I'm a big John Hughes fan. I love The Breakfast Club. I love 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller. I love all that stuff. So hearing them talk about that got me really excited. Do you think they pulled it off? Like, do you feel like that element worked the way you were expecting or hoping it would? What do you guys think?
I didn't see that, and that's not a complaint, because I think a lot of times that can be, it's all about getting the girl, it's all about accomplishing that goal to get you to adulthood. Not that you can't say that happened, but and there's also usually more of a group dynamic. Again, not that he didn't have a group, but not really. And so I still think it threaded the needle with because arguably, I know superhero movies should be for kids, but for good or for ill, they're not anymore. They're for adults. They're for us.
Right.
And so a high school setting can sometimes be challenging for an adult movie-going audience. But I thought they made him young. They kept him young. They had I have the crush on the girl. They have on the nerdy. I have the nerd friends. But he went to a nerd school. So, it's kind of hard to be the nerd outcast. And I did love and this is just speaking from my... putting it at a nerd school, I know that's not what you call it, but putting it at a nerd school in New York, the diversity speaks for itself, because that's, nerd schools are usually pretty diverse. So, to have Flash, it's not like the big, blonde, football jerk. It's
archetypal bully.
Yeah, it's like the subcontinent, background kid, who's maybe, probably not as smart as him. That's what it is.
Yeah, he's a little smarmy. Like, he's just kind of smarmy, and he's spoiled.
He likes to think of himself as the smartest, the best, but he's clearly not.
Mm-hmm. And to have both of his, well, won't say both, his crush and a girl he hangs around both be of sort of the same racial makeup. They're both
more so the girl that hangs around him.
Yes, that hangs around him. That's true. Yeah, because that's heavily implied. We can say she has a crush on him, right?
But of course, she's not obsessed. She's just very observant.
Exactly.
Right. she's already made a sketch of the three of us right now podcasting.
Exactly. So. If only. How sweet of her. She's such a darling. But Matt, what do you think? Did you? Oh, go ahead, Philip.
Well, I was just one last thing, because you brought up Zendaya.
Yeah.
I thought it's interesting, as much as they sort of, Tom Hardy and Zendaya have sort of been doing the, duo partner publicity tour. She's not in this movie. I'm like, okay. She's a star as much, in the Disney circuit. I'm sure in real life outside of that, but okay, that was a curious thing, to be
right.
No, but I feel like they're setting up her dynamic for Homecoming too, or whatever.
They're gonna pull a Hermione. It's gonna be like, oh, look how she blossoms, and suddenly Peter notices her, and all that stuff.
Spider-Man graduation.
Exactly. But so Matt, what did you feel about the high school stuff?
So when I heard John Hughes, I didn't necessarily think that they were gonna go full replication of John Hughes. What I took that to mean was John Hughes movies made high school feel like a real identifiable place.
Yeah.
It felt like not movie high school. It felt like real high school, and the real experiences that you have there, and the real kind of archetypes that you have in high school. And even though this is a nerd school, as Philip said, I really felt like they kept that part of it true. And, I could see some John Hughes parallels in there, because you have Peter and his friend who, are easily the kids from Weird Science.
Yeah.
And, Zendaya is basically Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club.
Right, yeah. I got that vibe, too.
And, maybe Liz is your Molly Ringwald.
Right.
Pretty in Pink sort of thing. So, it may not be exact replication, but they got the spirit of it. I think they pulled out the spirit of it very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I said, that was the most exciting thing for me going into it. I think coming out of it, that was my favorite part, just all the high school stuff. And one of the things that has always appealed to me about Spider-Man is that Peter Parker's dilemma is always, in the comics, it's always either I go to this decathlon or I stop the giant bomb from exploding. Or my Aunt May needs medicine, but Doc Ock is tearing up Manhattan. So I always love when and this movie does a very good job of having moments like that where it's like either he can hang out with his friends or he has to stop this explosion. That provides some, like I said, I didn't feel as strong of an emotional connection as I would have liked, but the moments where he's kind of longingly looking at his group of friends and wishing he could be with them, but like, duty calls, I got to go off and do the Spider-Man thing. I felt that from those moments, and right. I really hope they continue to develop these characters, focus maybe a little bit less on connecting it to the larger universe and kind of honing it down into this little corner of Peter Parker's world.
I think they will. I think the connections to the Marvel universe in this movie are purposefully made so that people who were, burned by Spider-Man 3 or burned by Amazing Spider-Man 2 will realize that this is not those movies. It's connected to this universe that you love. So right. I think that now that people know that, they can take more liberties in the sequel. Apropos of nothing, I did want to say, though, when we were talking about Uncle Ben, since Marissa Tomei is Aunt May in this film, I will pay big money if Uncle Ben turns out to be Joe Pesci.
Oh my God!
Just have to have a picture of him or somewhere. That's all you need.
I would. Yeah, don't even continue to not mention Uncle Ben, but just have a moment where you're focusing on the picture and you realize who it is, and it's just a snapshot from My Cousin Vinny. It's like there's Uncle Ben and Aunt May back in the good old days when Uncle Ben was a practicing lawyer. That would be amazing.
This seems to me, and this isn't a complaint, but I noticed it. This seems to be one of the few. I'll say the only Marvel movie that doesn't push the universe forward. Like, there's no after credit scene of, hey, blah,
right.
Infinity Stone just dropped in New York City. I don't know, but like,
at most, I don't know what the sequel to Homecoming is going to be, but you can maybe argue that first post credit scene might play into Homecoming too.
What do you all think of that?
I felt that was more of
vague.
It felt more like Damage Control than anything else. Like, they realized they'd finished the movie.
No, Sean, Damage Control is a whole department. You can't just be part of the movie.
That's right. So they got basically the equivalent of that, but in screenwriting form. And they had a moment where they realized they'd finished the movie, and they were like, "Oh crap! The Vulture knows who he is. What's to stop him from telling anybody?" And right. It felt less. I mean, they're teasing the Scorpion a little bit. They're teasing like, "Oh, there's some guy. I've got some guys on the outside." So obviously, Spider-Man's going to have to take down some people. They're teasing like there's going to be a little bit more of an uprising.
Some sinister people.
Some sinister. Yes, exactly. But that felt less like here's what's going to happen in the sequel, and more to me like they were like, we should probably throw in a scene that explains why the Vulture isn't revealing Peter Parker's identity to anybody else.
That could be, but they made a conscious choice not to kill Michael Keaton, so I thought maybe that's going to play into the sequel.
True, and I did like that it made sense organically for Michael Keaton's character, I like that Spider-Man saved his daughter's life, and Spider-Man, despite the Vulture trying to kill him the entire movie, then puts himself in danger to save Toombs' life as well. And but speaking of Michael Keaton, so let's talk about Michael Keaton a little bit more in depth.
You just talked about the big spoiler there, which is like that of course got the most gasps from my audience, where it's revealed about the beginning of the third act that this girl that he's had a crush on for this whole movie, Liz, and who he finally asks to the homecoming dance. He gets to her house, she rings the doorbell, Michael Keaton answers the door. It turns out he's her father.
And that got the biggest... did you guys... my theater, both times, that got the hugest reaction. I lost it. Like, I thought that was so brilliant. I was laughing for the next 5 minutes.
Kudos to whoever wrote this movie, or whoever's idea that was. I don't know about you guys, but that was not telegraphed at all.
No.
Did not see that
not
coming.
at all.
It was a great twist.
Because when I first saw him, I'm like, oh my god, he like killed the family, or like, he like met him there to like throw down. I'm like, there's about to be like, oh no, that's even worse. I'm like, I think we were all Peter for that whole like 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Like,
that was
here's your corsage.
and right. He just hands it to her. Tom Holland is. I mean, he's great. I mean, Tom Holland's great in the movie, but like that whole moment, especially because there's so many great little things like him handing off the corsage, him just trying to smile
for the pictures,
and not being able to do it. And then in the car when she's like, "Here, look at my phone," he goes, "Oh, great," and then he just kind of looks away, and it's just like it's such a simple thing, but it's so funny.
Michael Keaton as the villain, though, I mean, we'll talk about him, but obviously, for me personally, he's second only to Loki in this Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. And my favorite part of him is, I mean, you can cut the tension with a knife. That whole car ride over and his talk with Peter in the car was so good.
I just love the lighting on his face when he's like, "Your good old buddy Spider-Man," and it's like, good Lord, this is terrifying. But I love
Michael. I forgot because it's been a while since I've seen Michael Keaton play a bad guy. I know he's done it before.
Yeah,
but he's got the crazy eyebrows and like he's just so sinister looking.
I know he really is, and I think Kingpin still is my favorite villain in the. Okay. I mean, I guess technically it's not the cinematic universe, but it is in that universe. I do love him. A Vulture, not that he was underwritten, but again, I felt like Michael Keaton's performance really brought that home for me. I loved the development that he was Peter's girlfriend's dad, but I almost, again, that felt a little rushed. Like I was like, oh, let that moment breathe a little bit longer because it happens at the beginning. It's like the second to third act transition. It kind of pushes us into the third act, but I almost would have loved it more if Peter. It's tough because then you lose the excitement and the shock value of that reveal, but I wanted that moment to have some time to develop. Like Peter's dating the girlfriend, or his girlfriend is the daughter of the main villain. Let that play out a little bit because I wanted more of Michael Keaton almost normalized in a way. You get the sense that like, yeah, he is a family man, but we don't see a lot of that. Even in that moment, even as funny as it is, Michael Keaton almost immediately goes into like sinister mode and is like, oh, interesting. You were there in DC, but you weren't in the elevator. Huh? And then immediately is like threatening him. And I wanted a little bit more of like, oh, he's actually a sweet dad, and he does what he does for his family. But it's like I loved the moment, but I wanted a little bit more room to breathe because then we rush into Homecoming, and then Peter's out the door fighting and like going to get the plane and everything, and it's really, really compressed into this very small window of time.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like they did try to emphasize that this guy's a normal Joe. He's not this super crazy villain and I thought they did that when guys remember the scene where the original Shocker's threatening to leave, and he exposed him, and he picks up the gun and vaporizes him. Didn't mean to vaporize him though, so it shows that he's not good, but he's not like this put together villain.
Right. That was not like he was not trying to kill the guy. He was like,
that's not the anti-gravity gun.
Yeah, exactly. So I did get that, and I think what really would have hammered it home to me is seeing a little bit more of his family life. And again, you forfeit the shock, that great big moment, if you reveal earlier on that's happening.
And also too, like I didn't notice this on the first one, but I noticed it on my repeat viewings. He keeps like his sidekick or one of his crew members keeps pushing him to try to rob the Avengers, and he doesn't want to rob the Avengers until he has no other choice.
Exactly. He wants to, because he doesn't want to be. It's kind of like the whole idea of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to get involved with the Avengers world. He's like, keep things small. We don't want to be on Tony Stark's radar. Let's just do this. And then Spider-Man kind of comes in, and it's like, we weren't on the radar at all, and now this superhero is like thwarting everything, and now Iron Man's involved. So his whole thing is like, he's just pissed because everything was going well until Spider-Man came and screwed stuff up, and then got the notice of Tony Stark, and now they're on everybody's radar.
Yeah, and I think he seems the most non-cartoonish villain. He's as my wife and I were discussing afterwards, and like my sort of Trump era comment, like he's the quote unquote forgotten man that we hear about, at times, and so he's also not the second, but we have to talk damage control because you don't throw Ty Daly out there and not use her, so that's something coming up. But anyway, for a moment, you have him, but at the same time, I can't be too sympathetic to him because he does kill people a lot.
He doesn't show sympathy when he accidentally kills the
exactly.
guy.
And
he's kind of like, oops.
The part where, and I'm trying to remember the exact thing since you saw it a million times, Matt, but like basically when the crew decides to leave because they're done, not that, and so like he only has the one or two people left, and he's kind of like, nah, I still got to keep doing this for my family. I'm like, why? Like, have you not been
Yeah.
saving your millions of dollars of arms deals? Like, does you know
with
how much?
your fancy house.
Yeah, I'm
No,
like,
I
why does he
take
need
it
to
at that-
stay?
Yeah, I don't know if he was like bluffing at that point. I took it more as like point of pride. This little kid's not going to screw me over. You know.
Yeah.
I think what might have made it a little bit stronger is what if it was like he's like, this is the last job, and once we get this job, we're set for life. It would have made it a little bit stronger.
I think they
'cause
did
then
say it
his
was the last job.
Did they really?
Yeah, because
I must have missed that
because they did
it felt
say
it didn't.
Yes, they did say it was the last job, and actually, when he leaves to take Peter and Liz to homecoming, Liz's mom is like, "Oh yeah, he's always going in and out of town."
Right.
And he says, "Last time, I promise."
Yeah,
Right.
I wish they had maybe hammered that home a little bit more because I feel like that makes it all. It gives him a stronger reason to be even more frustrated. Like, I cannot believe this is all I have to do, and this stupid kid keeps ruining my last. This is it, and then I'm done. I think if they had made. Because, like you're saying, Philip, there's never a moment where you feel like he's not just a complete jerk. Like, he's killing people, doesn't really show remorse. The opening scene has him
he's
getting
loyal.
frustrated and He is. He's loyal. He
a
wants
leader.
to take care of his family. I think maybe if they generated a little bit more sympathy for him, where it's like, look, I don't want to do this, but I've got to do it. I felt like he enjoyed it a little bit too much to gain my sympathy. But again, Michael Keaton's great in the part, and I think it could have been a very one-note character minus the big twist of him being Liz's dad, but Michael Keaton keeps you, he's just by force of his just ability, he keeps you on board with the character, and it makes it like the way he describes like it could have been the shocker line could have been such a lame, like, oh, this is shocker, it's a big name drop. But the way he says it, he's like going around all the time saying, I'm the shocker, I shock people. The way he performs that line is just so funny that it makes it really work beyond just like, oh, yeah, of course, the shocker. So Michael Keaton's great. We all loved him. We loved his villain. You guys think he will? There is going to be, obviously he's alive. You think he will come back to play a part in future movies?
Most of these Marvel movies end with the villain dying, right? So,
Yeah.
like, when they don't die, that triggers off something in my head, like, put that in your back pocket, because Zemo's not dead. He's in prison. And, Michael Keaton, they made a conscious choice. Like, he could have easily died. When his wings explode and he falls into the Inferno,
Yeah.
it could have been too late when Peter gets to him.
That's true, yeah.
They made a conscious choice not to kill him off.
Yeah, they certainly didn't hire me to write it, but I would think with the sequel, I would imagine it'd be someone else, but it's this whole, like, either he'll be in the after credits scene of the second movie, or it'll be something at, like, some weird team up, or,
Yeah, I know 5 other guys who we want to team up with, and it's like, so there's 6 of us.
Or,
hint.
It could be, like, something like the post-credit scene could happen where, like, say there's another villain on the outside that Spider-Man ends up defeating, like, in the first to second act transition. They show him going to prison. He hears the rumor about Michael Keaton knows who he is, and he goes and, like, tries to shank him or something and threaten him to find out who Spider-Man really is.
Right.
Just spitballing off the top of my head how he could be used.
Gotcha. So what in this movie, what was like a standout moment for you? Like, if you had to sell somebody on this movie and they were like, just spoil a scene for me that will get me into this, what's the one, like, scene or sequence that you would be like, this is why you've got to see it?
Spider-Man suit tutorial.
Because, like, special shout out to Jennifer Connelly, who's the voice of the computer, and it's really funny. This has to be an in-joke. Jennifer Connelly's the voice of his computer. She is married to Paul Bettany, who is Vision, who was Jarvis.
Yeah, and Kevin Feige has confirmed that. He was doing an interview with, I think, Birth Movies Death, and Kevin Feige had a nerd moment where he was like, "Oh, do you know who plays Karen?" And the interviewer was like, "No." And he's like, "It's Jennifer Connelly, and Jennifer Connelly's married to Paul Bettany, so that means Karen and Jarvis are dead." Kevin Feige was geeking out about it. I love that this guy who is like a billionaire and in charge of this universe is nerding out about stuff like that. That makes me so happy that he's the guy in control of this universe. He just has so much joy and love for it. But Matt, what about you? What's your what moment or scene or whatever would you use to sell, like, your favorite moment?
I was talking about earlier how some of the soap opera elements of Sam Raimi feel a little bit dated, and I like the human drama. The one scene that really stood out to me and it got me so on Spider-Man's side and so on Tom Holland's side was when he goes to confront Vulture and he gets crushed under all the rubble.
Yeah.
And then you can hear he's really scared at that point, like crying, screaming for someone to help him, and then he forces himself to be Spider-Man, and just hearing him say, come on, Peter, come on, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man, and then lifting him up, that was a great character moment.
It really is. That, like I said, if this movie had any big issues for me, it was a lack of like emotional substance, but that scene definitely got some shivers. It got some tears for me. I was very moved by that moment. And it's a great callback. There's, I don't know if you two are familiar, there's a very famous cover that it's supposed to be invoking, which is he gets trapped. I can't remember. It's issue number 33, but I can't remember exactly what happens. But he's basically trapped under this machinery and water's pouring in on him. It's very clearly designed after that moment. But similar to the comic, that moment in the comic, it's a very... it's a huge moment of growth for him where he's basically like about to give up, and then he's like, no, I'm going to do this to save my loved ones, and he basically forces this machinery off. But yeah, that's a great moment. I loved I really loved the first extended scene where he is going around the neighborhood and helping people. That whole montage set to
Blitzkrieg
Bop.
Yeah, I loved that. It's so much fun, and it's so in spirit with that character where it's like you have him stopping a bike thief, but then he's also not big enough to not help a woman with her directions. Like, here, just take a left here. But then also
accidentally webs the guy who's Slim Jimming his own car.
Exactly. So he's not above helping people with directions, but he's also not above making a stupid mistake like that and getting yelled at by everybody.
Now, but the biggest laugh for me in the movie, if you want to talk about that, is the stuff with the suit. And I think the biggest laugh for me personally was hearing what enhanced interrogation mode sounded like. It's basically a riff on Christian Bale's Batman voice, right?
It really is.
Or even Ben Affleck's Batman voice. It's like supposed to make this gravelly and intimidating, and it's just like
it just sounds so goofy.
It was
I'm not a woman. I'm a boy. I mean, I'm a man.
I love he tries to replicate it when he steals Flash's car. Yeah. I need your car. Flash, sir, it's my dad's car. And then again, when he's saving Liz and everybody in the monument.
Sorry,
everybody okay here? Like,
I didn't mean to take us off into a tangent, but that was like the biggest laugh out of me was hearing enhanced interrogation mode.
That was such a brilliant. I loved the suit and I loved Karen, but I also I'm nervous about it being a little too similar to Iron Man. It makes sense in this universe because Iron Man built the suit, but I also love Peter Parker's like internal monologue and having to talk himself through things. I almost feel like Karen takes away from that in a way, but at the same time, I loved that addition so much, and I loved that gave way for things like interrogation mode and all this other fun stuff, insta-kill and really fun gags like that. But I loved the sequence of him in the beginning. I loved the Washington Monument scene. I just thought that was so much fun and such a great.
This is really
he
tough.
has to save. Yeah, yeah, and I loved that. That also was like he's like I've never been up so high, and I wish I'd seen that moment in IMAX or in 3D because you feel it when he looks over the edge.
IMAX or 3D.
Yeah, you feel it when he looks over the edge. You're like, oh.
Whenever movies do something with heights, be it like this movie or when like Tom Cruise is scaling that building in Mission Impossible,
that's what I thought about too.
My palms sweat because I'm scared of heights anyway, and just watching it on the big screen is like, oh my god. But,
I know that was definitely intense, but yeah.
I like
so
as a Spider-Man diehard, I often see in the comics, or at least on covers, I don't know what you call it, the web underneath the arm. I don't know what you call it, but like it always when I would see that, I'd be like, "What? That's like a weird." I mean, an artist choice, I know, to kind of make it a little bit more plain Jane. But I like that they included that in the movie and sort of gave it a little bit of meaning and like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. Why?
Yeah, because it was more of an aesthetic thing. I guess they were like, oh, all the other heroes have capes, so just give him something that's like a cape. So it shows up every so often with no explanation in the comics, like it's just a visual thing, like you're saying. But I loved that they included it in this, and like you said, there's a specific use for it, and he actually gets some he does get some use out of it and uses it to help himself out.
Before we go on or start wrapping up, there is something else that I wanted to mention real quickly, and it was a worry that I think some of the general audience had. I never did, but like some of the general audience had. I just want to emphasize it plain and clear. This is not an Iron Man movie. Not at all.
Oh, yeah,
right.
No. And honestly, I'm not being a more of the captain than the Iron in that debate. The less Tony Stark, the better for me. And so I think there's he's there for how he needs to be, and he's not when he needs to be.
But literally, like I will say this to people: what you see of him in the trailers is pretty much every scene that Robert Downey Jr. is in.
Yeah,
and he's there for just the right amount.
Yeah, and I completely agree. It is very much a Peter Parker movie, and Tony Stark serves as a mentor for him and kind of a develop, like a way to develop Peter's character. But Peter is not there in service of Tony Stark. It's very definitely the opposite. Did you guys? Because you brought up the trailer, Matt. Now, in retrospect, I realize that just the second trailer is the plot of the movie, minus the twist, like the thing with Liz's dad. But you see every beat, like with him losing the suit, failing to stop the ferry. That just annoys me. This is a random side tangent, but it just annoys me that like Sony's marketing team was like, let's just do the whole movie beat for beat. I remember seeing. I'm totally like I look into all these trailers. I love it, but I remember after seeing that second one where they revealed that he loses his suit, I was like, you know what? I don't want to watch any more of these. That's a development I would have loved to have seen with no like pre-existing knowledge. Like it's sorry, this is like I don't know if I have a point to make other than stop spoiling the movie in your trailers.
Yeah, stop spoiling the movie in the trailer. I will say though, at least the movie that it spoiled was a good one because I mean, let's not forget about a year ago, Warner Brothers did the same thing where they spoiled pretty much all of Batman versus Superman and showed you what exactly a train wreck it was going to be. So I mean, I guess thank goodness for small favors, but I get it.
Well, like my two semi-negative comments would be like one. I mean, that storyline's a trope at this point. Hero gets powers. That's in Raimi, isn't it? I mean, he literally loses his powers. In Spider-Man.
It's basically. I mean, Raimi's. If you look at them, they talk about Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner, Superman a lot.
Same thing.
And I mean,
right. Superman 2,
Spider-Man 1 is almost beat for beat following kind of the template set up by Superman 1, and then Superman 2 he loses his powers, he wants to be with the woman he loves,
right.
Realizes he has to get them back. Spider-Man 2 is a mirror image of that.
The one thing that makes this unique, though, is that I like the fact that it's taken away not because of him being depressed or choices that he's making. It's the fact that he's a teenager and can't do this right. He keeps screwing up,
and he stepped out of line and needs a little spanking, basically. But I didn't realize I would love it until it happened. But I really wanted. I was like, I hope he gets the suit back and gets to have a final fight with the Vulture. But I kind of love that he does it in his normal suit.
Well, no,
because it makes sense for the character that he doesn't get the suit. He has to do it on his own.
That was the message of that Rubble scene that I like, is that it's not this, because you hear Tony Stark's voiceover repeating like if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it.
Right, exactly.
The whole point of the ending is it's not the suit that makes him Spider-Man; it's Peter Parker that makes him Spider-Man.
And that's what exactly. And I loved that, and I loved that I wasn't expecting to love that, but I did in the grand scheme of things. And I really hope they kind of establish a little bit that he's kind of evolved a little bit, and he's a little bit more mature, and he's earned the right to have this suit. And I really hope again, like that it really comes down to the focus of him really trying to be a hero in his relationships with his fellow students. But is there anything as far as the sequel goes? What are you hoping to see, Matt, in a sequel? And then Philip, you go ahead as well.
I mean, the way that this movie ends before the credits, I like the fact that this Aunt May knows now.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting dynamic that I want to see in the sequel because, I mean, Shawn, you've seen both the Raimis and the Amazings, but in Raimis and Amazing, they kind of play it coy with Aunt May, like, oh, maybe she knows, but she does. Yeah. Does she know? Does she not know? What is she hiding? This one, it's unequivocal. She knows.
Right.
And so,
do you think he'll try to pull? Like he'll be like, "It's just a costume, Aunt May. What are you talking about?" But it's way more interesting if they go in that direction. But Philip, what about you? What are you hoping to see in the sequel?
Sure. Well, One thing about you see in this movie, it kind of reminds me, to put this in sort of RPG, D&D terms, you sort of get like level 1 Spider-Man when he's like literally like having to run the neighborhood. Like, I have no other powers than just to walk right now. I don't even have like, a horse or something. And then like he has, again, like when you were saying earlier, Sean, when you take him out of New York and he's like, he doesn't have any buildings to web around. And he's like, what? I don't know what to do. But so obviously an evolution in the sequel, but also one of my things that I would look for is I don't want to see young Peter Parker forever. It can't be high school forever. It can't be, I want to see, not it has to be grown-ups, but like, mid, late 20s Spider-Man, because, that's who he is in the comics. He's not in, like you said, he's not in high school for the current series, for the, most of comicdom in Spider-Man. He has his, wives dying and androids and aliens and all that. But anyway, let's see a growing Spider-Man. Let's get him out of high school. Let's get him out there.
Well, they're not going to get him out of high school. I think Kevin Feige has said that the trilogy is going to be like Harry Potter, where this was his sophomore year. Homecoming 2 is going to be his junior year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like, because junior year, what happens in your junior year? Nothing really. I would like for
SATs,
the second,
applying to schools.
Yeah, you can do, because I remember reading that, and I love Harry Potter, and again, I love coming of age movies, so I love the idea of watching a character grow up over the course of a few movies and mature and become an adult. But I also agree with Philip, as much as I love high school Spider-Man, as much as I love that setting, I hope the next one is more his senior year, like he's about to graduate. That's a big step for a kid, like, so instead of just kind of like, oh, it's a junior and he's not yet there, I would love to have it be like there's something big on the horizon.
But here's the thing, right? Is that we don't know. We're taking it from the end of this movie. We don't know what's going to go down in Infinity War with Spider-Man. Chances are he's going to see some stuff that he wasn't prepared to see. So maybe the next movie could still be junior year, but he's a changed person because of presumably Well, not to be cliche, but like, if he's going to be a soldier, quote unquote, in the Infinity War, you think that's going to affect him, just the way that Civil War affected him in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. And I know in the comics, I don't know if this is spoiling anything, but like, I think when they did Secret Wars again more recently, I think Peter is one of the only ones who retains his memories from before. So if this is going to be, if Infinity War is kind of going to be like Secret War, where it's going to sort of retcon, reboot that universe, they could pull something like that, where maybe Peter is one of the only people who has seen some terrible stuff happen and retains the memory of it, and maybe that affects who he is moving forward. But all right, so what do you think? Final ratings on a scale of 1 to 5 spider probes. I don't know. What's the ranking system? Not spider probes.
Have you been there the whole time? Okay.
Oh man, I can't think of anything good.
On a scale of 1 to 5 of those little Spidey drones or drones,
exactly. Let's do those. Yeah. Okay, so how would you give it, Matt?
I would give it 4.5 Spidey drones. Not everything about this movie is perfect, but it's one of my favorites in this universe. It achieved what it wanted to achieve. It makes me excited that he's here in this universe now. And it was just a good time. It was funny. And I know that's a poisonous word to certain comic book fans, but not everything has to be dour and depressing. And there are emotional moments in this movie, for sure. But, just the little things, like, we didn't talk about it that much, but Captain America's cameos in these random videos, and that plays into the second end credit scene where he lectures you on patience, and, sometimes patience pays off, and sometimes you realize that we were waiting for something so disappointing.
Brilliant. It's so brilliant.
But look, every time he showed up on screen, I just was laughing. So this is a great time at the movies. I think that this breathes new life into Spider-Man and the Avengers, because I really feel like if they developed his character right, he could be like the new Iron Man or Captain America post-Infinity War. He could be the face of the franchise.
Totally. Philip, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I give it 4 invasions of privacy with the drones. And I agree that Spider-Man is a breath of fresh air. Like, he's literally youth. There's no youth in the Avengers. Even as Captain America is decades old. There's no young people necessarily in the Avengers, and so you have this sort of kid that kind of brings in new life to it. Who's not a god or a deadly assassin or a World War II veteran or any of this, and so it does bring that new life. Also, since we didn't mention it, Donald Glover cameo.
I want
on
to see
so
him
many
in the
levels.
sequel. Like, I just have him like show up like, you mother effer, like you left me there with that web.
I had ice cream.
You have the tease of him being like, yeah, I got my nephew. He lives in this neighborhood, and it's like, nephew,
yeah.
Miles Morales. All right.
Oh, is that who he's supposed to be the nephew of?
Yep,
Like, I didn't know the character.
I didn't catch that either. Only I read
the
that in an
character's
article.
name, I want to say it's Aaron Davis is the character's name, and apparently he is Miles' uncle.
Cool,
in the
that's cool.
comics. So it's basically, and I think Miles Morales is being played in the animated version by Donald Glover. So it's a really cool connection.
That's really cool, and of course, they're always thinking 20 movies ahead. So when Tom Holland eventually decides to hang it up, they'll do a Miles Morales story with him.
Exactly. I think that'd be really cool. It'd also be cool to see them both interact with each other.
Well, that's
Miles
what I mean.
Morales
I think when
He'll be the Tony Stark figure.
When and if Tom Holland hangs up the suit for Miles Morales, I think it'll be like a passing of the baton movie.
Exactly. And I really, really enjoyed it. I would say, I want to say 3.5, but I'm going to bump it up to 4 awkward dad talks, and out on a scale of 1 to 5 awkward dad talks,
or awkward Aunt May talks, as it were.
awkward Aunt May, awkward Vulture archenemy dad talk. I really, like I said, I wanted Sam Raimi's movies move me emotionally, and this one didn't necessarily move me emotionally, despite some really great emotional moments. But I loved the fun. I loved the high school stuff. I really hope they focus more on the character and developing his relationships with everybody around him. And I just want more Captain America training videos.
That's do too.
Really what I need in my life.
Even like that little bit of the movie is like, God, I'm going to be so sad when Chris Evans eventually has to leave this universe.
I know. He's so good. And I mean, I really love the Captain America movies, and he plays a big part in why those are so good. But yeah, I was very happy as a Spider-Man fan. I was very happy, and it's a good start to what I am hoping is going to be like a really special, unique franchise within this larger franchise.
Right, and I think we're all in agreement, or at least I hope we are. For me, whether or not this is the best Spider-Man movie, Tom Holland is easily my favorite Spider-Man / Peter Parker.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much pulled from the comics, like in the same way for me, like Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark Iron Man. I feel that. It's definitely, he is wonderful, and that's that. So, gentlemen,
one could even say spectacular, amazing, and the ultimate Spider-Man.
That's right.
Yes.
But gentlemen, I'm glad we got to sit down and talk about this. This has been an absolute delight. So where can everyone find you guys on the social media, on the Facebooks and the Twitters?
You can find me on Twitter at mhansen0207, HANSEN, talking about all things nerdy, whether that be Star Trek, Star Wars, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now that Spider-Man Homecoming is out and released, that means my MCU attention is going to now turn to Thor Ragnarok, which, having seen that trailer, like, I'm really excited for a Thor movie.
And I love the director. I love Hunt for the Wilder People. I love What We Do in Shadows. It's an inspired choice for Thor. I think that's great.
Yeah. They can find me here on the network, mostly each and every week, City Alpha 3, where we talk all things Star Trek with Darren Moser and Daniel Prue. And they can find me on Twitter, where my handle is NC Public Servant.
And I am here on the Nerd Party as well, doing Missing Frames every other week, and really, really encourage you guys to listen to these other shows as well, because they're all great. And I am on Twitter at YeShandorman. You can also follow the Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party, but mostly just follow us, because we are the best members of the Nerd Party.
We will be
easily
your guys in the chair.
Exactly. It's exactly right. But that is it. That's it. Spider-Man, come talk to us. I'm looking forward. I will throw down with anyone who wants to talk to me about Tobey Maguire not being good. I'll throw down with you. So do it. Find me at Yeshanderman and let's talk. Let's chat Spider-Man.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us for this review. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we do. And until next time at the Filibuster and at Nerd Party, we will remain your friendly neighborhood Spider podcasters.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.